director in California. We have an awesome program lined up with our amazing keynote speaker, our Broward School Board member, Lori Alhadeff. And before we hear from her and all of the great advice and insight that she has for us, we have a few club business that we're going to go over, and then we'll have a great program and event for you. So before we begin, we have a Youth Innovator Recognition. This is something that we do before all of our calls, and we like to recognize one youth leader or a group or organization that's making change in their community. And that, in this case, will be Westglades Middle School's student government team. I went to Westglades Middle School. I know Bailey, Miriam, Isabel did the same, and I know their student government team is amazing, led by Miss Latanya Fondren and their president, Ella. And they just have an incredible organization and awesome activities they have in their school. So Ella is the president. And Ella, if you want to briefly speak about the things that the student government team is working on and what you love about the SGA team over there.
Hi. So first of all, thank you, Sanan, for inviting us. This is a great honor. Unfortunately, some of our members couldn't join today, so it's only going to be me. I think one other person might be joining, but she's still maybe about it. So student government has benefited both our community and Westglades as a school. It benefits our community because we have mental health awareness posts on our Instagram. The Instagram is at Westglades SGA if you want to go look at it. We have mental health awareness quotes, so like positive, uplifting quotes that we post every single Monday, and they are posts designed by our social media specialist. And they have a colorful background with a quote. And for our caption, it just explains the quote and what our message is. And for our school, we run some events that happen, such as the talent show, 5K, harvest drive, and etc., which benefits our school and the students.
Thank you so much, Ella, and your team for all that you do. I remember when I was in Westglade, student government was my favorite part, my favorite thing to do, and I'm so glad that you're continuing to make an impact. And welcome to the Youth Innovation Table.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you. So our founder of the Youth Innovation Table is Mayor Scott Brook of Coral Springs, Florida. He unfortunately wasn't able to make it today, but he is just the best mentor to all of our students and mentors, and we always love to recognize and give him a shout out for all of his help and guidance of us. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to our Vice President, Miriam, who's going to introduce our team and some ways to get involved.
Thank you, Sinan. So as you guys can see, this is our leadership team. So of course we have our president, Sinan. I'm Miriam, I'm the vice president. We have our two wonderful communications directors, Bailey and Isabel, our director of the Youth Innovation Table in California, Grace, and our secretary, Julianne. So if you guys are interested in having kind of greater involvement in the Youth Innovation Table and want a leadership role, we are more than happy to, work with you to help you have one. So there are three different areas that you can kind of specialize in if you are interested. You can focus on marketing and outreach, member retention and recruitment, and fundraising. And these will act as different committees that you can focus on. So if you're interested, you can always email us. And Bailey just put our email in the chat. And here is, I want to give a special shout out to our student committee chair, Jacob Nagofsky, and he's going to be in charge of fundraising. So congratulations, Jacob. We're so excited.
Jacob has done an amazing job, and thank you, Jacob, for all that you're doing to help us out with fundraising. And Jacob, we want to turn it over to you briefly to talk about sponsorships and ways that businesses can get involved with the Youth Innovation Table.
Yeah, so these are our four sponsorship tiers: platinum, gold, silver, and bronze. So if you know anyone or if you yourself are affiliated with a company, please let us know. Contact us if you would like to sponsor us. It would greatly help us and let us have the biggest impact possible in our community.
Thank you, Jacob. So before we begin today's program, I want to make sure everybody marks in their calendar September 20th. That'll be the Youth Innovation Table that will precede this one with Mayor Michelle Gomez of Tamarack, Florida. So we're going to have a Q&A session today, a chance to ask questions of our keynote speaker, a few things about Zoom etiquette and the best experience that you can have on Zoom. If you go to the top right corner of your screen, you'll see a gallery or speaker view. If you go into speaker view, that'll give you the best chance to see our keynote speaker and engage. And it may be more appropriate when we have the Q&A session, when everyone has a chance to ask questions, to change that to gallery view. We also have the chat icon, which should be at the bottom of your screen. And throughout the whole program today, even right now if you'd like, you can put any questions or comments that you may have, and we'll make sure to recognize those. You also have the raise hand function, which will identify to our team that you have a question, a comment, or something that you want to share. And you can share as much as you'd like. You may not even have a question, but you can even share what you're working on, and we can continue to support each other. So without further ado, it is our honor to introduce our keynote speaker today, Lori Alhadeff. She's the Broward County School Board member for District 4. She is a leader, an advocate, and just does an amazing job supporting our students in our community. And it's truly an honor to have her here. And thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to be here and to talk to us. And feel free to share any pieces of advice and insight that you may have. And welcome to the Youth Innovation Table.
Thank you, Sanan. Thank you guys so much. It's such a pleasure to be here and to speak to you today. I first wanted just to tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in New Jersey. I graduated from Hillsborough High School, and I was a soccer player, and I also threw the javelin, and my best was 102 feet. And I have the school record at Hillsborough High School for most assists in soccer. And I'm also in the Hillsborough High School Hall of Fame for soccer. And then I graduated from the College of New Jersey with a degree in health and physical education, and I have my master's in education. I also was a health and physical education teacher for 5 years, and then I had my family, my 3 children, and I was a stay-at-home mom for 14 years. But we lived in New Jersey and then moved to Florida 6 years ago. And my daughter, Alyssa, was a student at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. And tragically, Alyssa was killed on February 14th in the shooting at MSD. But, you know, I'm happy to be here. I know you have a lot of questions for me. You know, and one of the things I just want to say is that, you know, you just can't ever give up. You know, life's going to beat you down, and there's going to be things that are going to be really hard in your life, and you're going to go through a lot of ups and downs, but you have to just pick yourself up and you have to keep going.
Thank you so much for your introduction, and we're so grateful that you're here to talk about such a wide range of topics that you're familiar with in education, in resiliency, in leadership, and so many other topics that are just so important for our youth and for anybody who wants to be a leader or even just as a person. So at this point in the juncture, I'll open it up first to anybody on the call who may have any questions that they want to start out with. But we also have questions in the registration as well, in case you don't want to say the first question, but you'd rather we start there and then we can come back. Okay, no worries. So we can start with the registration. And if you have any questions, anyone on the call, you can use the chat feature or let us know and we'll definitely get to you. So one of the first questions that came up in the registration was, what motivated you to want to become a school board member? And I know this is something that you kind of addressed in the beginning, but if you want to speak a little bit more to that and why you love and have a passion for what you do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So this was my daughter, Alyssa Alhadeff. And I have to say, Alyssa is my, motivation. You know, when the tragedy happened, I turned my grief into action. And Alyssa motivates me every day to want to make an impact, want to make a change on the Broward County School Board. So I knew that in order for me to have a voice for change, that I needed to have a seat at the table. So that's why I ran for the school board and have been your school board member for the last 3.5 years.
Wow. And along with the reason why you decided to take that step to be at the decision making table, another question that came up, which I think goes right hand in hand, is what is your vision for education in our community? And I would even go farther than that because you've been a national voice and a national advocate. So, not only your vision for education in our community, but even your vision for education across the country.
So we as a school district, so we have what's called a strategic plan. So it's our plan now for till 2024. And so our vision is educating today's students to succeed in tomorrow's world. And I think that's a really powerful statement. And we go about that through goals: high quality instruction, safe and supportive environments, and effective communication. And so our strategic plan really helps to bounce off like everything that we do, that it all always ties back to our strategic plan. And, you know, nationally, I have to say, you know, I've been focusing on school safety across the country with getting Alyssa's law passed, panic buttons in schools, and school safety risk assessments. You know, this is my life now as not only a school board member, but someone who also runs a nonprofit organization.
And for those who may not be familiar with Alyssa's Law, do you want to speak a little bit to that and what it entails and how much that's a big step towards gun safety and reform in our country?
Yeah, so absolutely. So Alyssa's Law that I was really part of helping to get passed actually 2 legislative sessions ago. And it requires schools to have panic buttons that can be an app based on the teacher's phone. So we want to empower our teachers that if there's a life-threatening emergency situation, the teacher can push a button on their phone, like if it's an active shooter, if it's a medical emergency, and then it's directly linked to law enforcement. But also everybody gets all the teachers, all the staff, the SRO officer, the police, they get the information all within seconds. So we say time equals life, because those seconds in those emergency situations really matter. So once it's directly linked to law enforcement, it's geofenced the area so they can get on the scene as quickly as possible to take down the threat or to triage the victims. But the other benefit about it is that they can receive information and they can give information. So if the shooter hypothetically is in the cafeteria, then the teachers would be able to more effectively respond by running away from the cafeteria.
That's absolutely incredible and definitely is going to make a strong impact towards the safety of our schools. And thank you for your advocacy and for fighting for legislation like that. I see that Miriam, you have your hand raised if you'd like to ask a question or a comment or anything that you'd like to share.
Yes, so I want to first say, Miss Alhadeff, sorry, your story is very inspiring, and I was just wondering how were you able to channel your grief into action? Because I'm sure it must have been very hard, and you must have had a lot of obstacles along the way.
So on February 14th, I guess it's the mom in me. Like as soon as I got that message that shots were fired at Stoneman Douglas High School and kids were jumping the fence, like I immediately had this sense of loss that came over my body. But I feel like that moment in time in my life is actually when my advocacy began, because that day was I not only, fighting to find my daughter, but then after I was continuing to fight for answers. And I think, once, finding the worst, answer of my life to find out that my daughter was killed, I knew Alyssa would want me to stand up and fight for change and to be her voice, because her voice was silenced. And so I think that fight that comes with inside me is Alyssa being there with me every step of the way, living within my heart and helping for me to be her voice.
And we can see it even through the way that you're speaking about the things that you're working on and what you're passionate about, that you put your heart and your soul and everything you've got into everything that you're doing. So we appreciate that, because you're a voice for all of us and you're a voice for all of the students. And it's something that we're all grateful for. So Miriam, great question. Thank you for that question. And does anybody else, or Miriam, if you have another comment you want to share, anyone have any more questions that you'd like to go ahead and share?
I want to first say thank you for your answer. I appreciate it. And I also wanted to know, in the last, I would say, 3 years that you've really started your advocacy, what changes have you noticed?
So there has been, after 2018, the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act that was passed, where there's been millions of dollars allocated for school security and also for mental health. And the Broward County Public Schools has also put millions of dollars into different school security measures. And I think that mental health also has, really risen to the top to be a main focus of what we need to focus on: social emotional learning, having, like to say, like, it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to, get help, to seek that help, because it's so important, especially with COVID and everything and all the social isolation that's been going on, and, not being able to socialize with our peers. Mental health has been it's a real priority for us, for the district, and to be able to provide those resources for our students.
That's amazing. You really are making the world a better place.
Thank you.
That was perfectly said by both. That's absolutely true, and thank you for that. And I think a lot of that progress is a direct result of your advocacy and leadership. So that's absolutely incredible. So I'll open it up again. If anybody on the call wants to ask a question or wants to introduce yourself, wants to share anything, I'll give it a few seconds and see if anybody would like to do that. Sure, Grace. Grace, go right ahead.
Hi, yes, I just want to say your story is very empowering and thank you so much for talking here today. I was just wondering, what do you think the best thing is for students to be doing to be advocating for these things like at their schools? Because I know obviously I'm in California, so I know the laws are going to be different, but what do you think are good steps to take to get there?
Sure. So I think it's really important to be involved with your school board, like your local school board. So students can be public speakers. You can come down to the school board to speak, or you can always, every week, and this was actually my suggestion I was really excited about as a school board member that I helped get implemented, was for people to do write-in public comments, because everybody can't come down to Fort Lauderdale at 5 o'clock in the afternoon to be a public speaker. So it's really important for you to read the agendas, at least the summary, to know what's going on. And then if something in that agenda is something that that's important to you, that you should submit a public comment and let your voice be heard. One of the things I like to say is your voice is your power. So meaning that you have the power to speak up, to be advocates, whatever it is that you want to focus on, but to not only write in your public comments, but also you can call legislators. You can pick up the phone, you can make an appointment with them and have Zoom meetings like this, with your senators and House of Representatives and your congressmen, I just think if it's something that you believe in, that don't stop, keep pushing. And then also traditional mail, like actually writing on a piece of paper and putting in an envelope with a stamp, is also a very powerful way to advocate for whatever it is you're looking to advocate for.
Well, those are some great ways to definitely get involved, and I think that it's so important that more people, especially students, know about those avenues, because it seems a lot of times like it's distanced where it may be impossible or uncanny to go and reach your school board member or even a congressperson or someone who's involved in the government. But at the end of the day, they're the people who are serving our needs and the things that we're going to be doing. So to reach out and to be involved in what's going on in the school board meetings and the agenda and speaking, that's definitely critical. So I appreciate you sharing that. Grace, do you have?
I just want to make one more comment. I say, like, we work for you, and I'm your voice up on the dais, but I don't know if what you want unless you tell me. So that communication needs to happen, and that's why it's also so important.
That's right on. And Grace, do you have any other questions regarding that you would like to share? Any other comments?
I don't think so. I just want to say thank you, but actually I do have a comment. But I don't know, at my school we have a specific person in our ASB goes and sits directly at the school board meetings. So I'm thinking that's like an interesting way. I don't know if that's how it is at anyone else's school, but that just made me think of that.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing, Grace. Anybody else would like to ask a question or share a comment? Anybody on the call, you can use raise hand, you can unmute, use the chat. Okay, no worries. We'll come back. We'll go back to some of the questions from. Oh, I misspoke. We have 2 raised hands. That's great. Alexis, if you'd like to introduce yourself, I think you're new to our program, and share a question or a comment, you can go right ahead.
Hi, I'm Alexis. I think Eloise spoke. I'm also in the SGA with her. I ran and won as vice president, which I'm proud of. But yeah, I'm really happy of what you're doing, because when my brother and my sister's friends went to Stoneman during the shooting, that could have been my brother. And I'm happy that you're taking action. And I love what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
And congratulations, Alexis, on your vice president role in Westglades and all that you're doing. And we're so happy to give your team a recognition and a shout out. Really great job.
Thank you.
Of course. And Miriam, you feel free to share another question or comment. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so sorry for asking a question again, but
No, you don't apologize.
so I had a question. If you felt like there was maybe some sort of lack of engagement from the youth with the school board members on issues that they do care about, and if you do feel like we need to engage the youth more, what steps do you think we should take so that students can actually begin to take action for things they care about?
So we do have 2 student advisors that sit on the school board and go to our school board meetings, and they are very much engaged, and they talk to a lot of students, and then they're the voice for students. But I think it's really a lot of what I said before is just, you can do more, right? So all of our email addresses are on the browardschools.com website. You can email your school board member, look at the agendas, because it's all about our schools, and there's going to be something that's really important to you that does come up, and you want to have your voice be heard. And you can, like I said, submit that public comment every week. You can submit a public comment. I mean, I think it's just try, do it. Like, I think it might be scary because you don't know necessarily what you might be doing, but if you read the rules, it has to, like, you write your name and your address, and it has to be a certain amount of words. But I think that's how you get your voice heard. And you say you're a student, you don't have to put your I guess actually you have to put your name, but I don't think they're not going to say your name, I don't think. But you'll have your comments there, and I think that's so important, to have your voice to be heard.
And I went ahead and shared a link if anybody would be interested. It has all the school board members, their contact, and if you have anything that's a concern for you, then I think, like you're encouraging, you can absolutely reach out. And that's a great way to be an advocate. And it's great that all of that information is accessible, because it just shows that the school board and yourself, you're willing to be open and transparent and take those questions, which is really, really amazing. Alexis, I see your hand is raised. Is that from the last time, or would you like to have a question or a comment?
No, sorry, I forgot to put it down.
No, that's okay. That's all good. Zoom is not the easiest, even though we've been using it for so long. But I appreciate that. Does anybody have an additional question or comment you'd like to share? Okay, no worries. So again, if you want to use the raise hand, the chat, you can go right ahead. I'll turn to the registration for now, and then we'll come back and see if anyone has anything else you'd like to share. So we talked a little bit about advocacy, and we talked about student advocacy, but one of the questions that came up in the registration has to do with advocacy by the school board members themselves. So the question that came up was, what responsibilities do you feel that school board members should play regarding advocacy?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I feel that, we have what's called a legislative platform, and our responsibility as a school board member is to help basically lobby for everything that's on that legislative platform. And that can be going up to Tallahassee, going around to different legislators and discussing our legislative platform. It's about like more additional funding, money for mental health, school safety, and it's a very important part of a school board member's job is to be able to be a voice for that legislative platform. And so I before COVID last year, I was up in Tallahassee like every other week, lobbying for Alyssa's law, and I got to speak in committee meetings to testify on Alyssa's law. But it's a really important part of being a school board member.
And that's really great that it goes hand in hand, because it's important that, like you do so actively and so well, and others are doing, to advocate for the things that are important to the school board at those levels. So I think that's a great question. Absolutely. Grace, I see your hand is up. If you have a question or a comment you'd like to share.
Yeah, I actually do have a question specifically regarding Alyssa's law, just because I thought that was really interesting. Is that something that it's just going to be happening in Florida, or would you ever plan on trying to, I don't forget what the wording is, but try and make it a national law? I know that's not the word, but
right. So yeah, I get what you're saying. So two things on that. One is we actually had it as a legislative concept in California. Senator Rubio was the senator that had it as the legislative concept, and but it died. It didn't go anywhere. But we are going to try again to get it passed. And we also have two federal bills. It's the Alyssa's Act, which is funding for panic buttons across the country and money for school resource officers. And then the Safer Schools Act, HR 2717, which is the Safe School Act, requiring schools to do a school safety risk assessment. And then based on that school safety risk assessment, there would be funding to implement the school safety measures at that school.
Oh, that's really wonderful. And Grace, that perspective that you share from outside of Florida, I think it gives a lot of perspective that this isn't just an effort that's working in Florida, it's an effort that's happening across the country in California and other places as well. Thank you for sharing. And Grace, or anyone, if you have any additional questions. Yes, go ahead. No,
sorry, I just wanted to add one little thing.
Yes.
For Grace, is that on my nonprofit's website, makeourschoolsafe.org, you could find all the information on Alyssa's law and other things too.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was really interesting, like Sinan said. I will definitely look into that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I don't know if I put it correctly in the chat, but if somebody wants to check on that and correct it, if you want to put the Make Our Schools Safe website in the chat so that everybody can see all the great work. Yes, thumbs up, absolutely. And thank you for helping in that effort and doing everything that you're doing. So if oh, Miriam said it got passed in New Jersey as well. That's great. All right. So does anyone have any additional questions that you'd like to share? Any comments? I'll wait a few seconds if anyone wants to share anything
I
additional.
have a question.
Go right ahead.
I was wondering, when the school board decides and votes on COVID-19 policies for Broward County, where do you guys gather your information from? Like, what resources and information?
Well, that's a wonderful question, Isabel. So staff is the one that puts together all the slides for a reopening plan, and they're working with different health professionals to implement those plans and the CDC guidance, Broward Health Department, and then also they were using information that was put out by the Florida Department of Education and Florida Department of Health.
All right. And that's really critical. I think that comes into kind of a new scope that we're talking about COVID-19 and public health in the schools. So thank you for bringing that forward, Isabel. And Isabel, if you have any additional questions or comments, feel free to share. Anyone else, if you'd like to unmute and share something. Okay, no worries. And the funny thing is, usually when I say that and then I go and transition, somebody will come up with something. So I'm sure we'll come back if anybody has any questions. I'll go back to the registration questions that we received. So the next one that I see, which is something that we really did touch on, I think a lot, but I think if you want to add any more to that, and that is, what is your advice to students to be resilient in the face of adversity and tragedy?
Yeah, so I would say number one, breathe, because in that moment of that adversity that's going on, you probably are thinking, this is the worst thing in my life, but know that you have a way out. There's always other solutions to the problem. And then I would also say it's so important to talk to someone. And there's therapy, but I want you to know that there's also different types of therapy. There's therapy with animals like Tomorrow's Rainbow does. There's art therapy, and we have music therapy. We have Eagles Haven here. That's an excellent resource where you can go in and make a bracelet, and all of that is types of therapy to help deal with our stress and deal with that trauma that you might be experiencing. But it's so important to know that it's okay to not be okay, and that a lot of times you have so much pressure on you and you might feel like you're like a balloon, and one thing is going to make you pop. But to be able to release some of that stress and having those conversations, whether it's with your friend or your teacher or your SRO officer, it's so important to just talk about it or write your feelings down on a piece of paper, but know that you're able to release that stress and in a healthy way. And I definitely say exercise and eating healthy is so important for your body, and it allows me to deal with my trauma in a healthy way.
And it's great you mentioned Eagles Haven and all the resources that are in our community that are just gems and help with in the pursuit of mental health and wellness. And I know we had Ms. Jeanette Cohen on the call, if anybody remembers, who talked about Eagles Haven. We've had members of the Mental Wellness Networking Alliance, and Mayor Brooke is a big advocate for that as well. So definitely all those resources are accessible and they're so important. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Grace, I see your hand is raised if you want to share.
Yes. I was just wondering, how do you think after these tragic attacks on the school, how do you think teachers and parents have shifted their ideas toward mental health, and how do you think that's like benefited students?
Yeah, no, I think everybody, they're realizing that the underlying root cause of these issues are mental health problems. And so that if we can start to help students, especially starting in elementary school, and get them, giving them the tools in the toolkit, those skills, to be able to take mindful breaths, to be able to deal with that stress in a healthy manner. It's so important, and to be able, like, to start at such a young level, so by the time you're in high school, you already know, like, how do I calm myself down, how do I do mindful breathing. And I think that the shift is positive, in that we need to, we're saying we need mental health counselors, but we also need to fund mental health counselors, and we need to have a better ratio of, more mental health counselors per student, because that ratio right now is just, it's way too large. And we need to be able to have, really give the students the time that they need to be able to work through their problems.
That was a great question, Grace, to expand on that theme. And absolutely, we definitely need that support. And that leads to another question that comes up in the registration, which is a big question, but you can go about it as you see fit, of course. And that question is, what do you feel is the biggest strength and the biggest weakness, or something to improve upon, in the education system in Broward County?
So I would say our biggest strength are our teachers and our principals. They are at the schools, working directly with our students, doing an amazing job. I mean, last year they had so much to juggle with, kids on teams, kids in person, wearing a mask and having to socially distance. And they were really just juggling a lot. So our definitely our strength is our teachers and our principals, who are running our schools and just coordinating everything and having to deal with so many different tasks and responsibilities. I would say our biggest weakness would be our failing Smart Bond program. Our Smart Bond program is, stuff that were promised to us, and there's been delay after delay after delay. And it was supposed to be $800 million, and it's like 1.3 billion and expanding. And our roofs are a complete disaster. Our roofs are leaking, and that causes mold, and then it causes damage to the infrastructure of our schools. So unfortunately, poor leadership led to the failing of our Smart Bond program. But we have a new superintendent in place, and we have a new program manager called ACOM, they're getting us back on the right track.
That's really great insight into both sides of what needs to be improved on, but what also is helping us move forward. Another question that comes up is, what is your favorite part of being a school board member?
Yeah, no, thank you so much for asking this question, because we have a lot of long, stressful meetings, like 8 to 10 hours long. So I really appreciate this question, because, just being able to get into the schools, like the first day of school, and was able to interact with students and like tie people's shoelaces and just read a book to students, like, to me, that means so much to me, to be able to engage with students. And it's the best part of the job of being a school board member.
Oh, that's really great. And it shows that you really are passionate and love what you do. And that's the thing to remember. There's a lot of heavy topics that we've discussed, but having that guiding light is really important. Another question that came up is, and this one may be a little bit more heavy than the last one, but what is the most important decision that you've had to make as a school board member? And I guess in this case, maybe the most important vote or moment, and whatever you feel in that regard.
So I would just say recently with having to vote to approve our new superintendent, our interim superintendent, and leader for our district, that it's so paramount to have and Dr. Cartwright, our new interim superintendent, she's doing an amazing job and is really holding us together and moving us forward in the right direction. And then in the future, the permanent superintendent person is going to be probably the biggest, vote decision that I'll have to make as a school board member. And we're doing a national search for that superintendent permanent position.
All right, and that is something that is definitely relevant and recent and something that you've had to face as a school board, but have faced it well and with the right intention. I see Silmi has her hand raised. Silmi is actually joining us internationally. She's all the way in Pakistan. So Silmi, go right ahead.
Hi, I'm Silmi. Thank you for this inspiring talk. I just had a question that many children in the school, they sometimes don't feel comfortable with their teachers or with their fellow peers. Like I know some kids who've discussed with me that some teachers took their advantage when they shared their vulnerabilities, or some peers took advantage. So how can fellow peers empower fellow peers within the school? Like how can they feel safe in their own school environment?
So I think having those peer-to-peer relationships and also being very mindful to all the students around you and including students to help really create a positive climate and to foster that healthy development within the school. If you see someone sitting alone, I think it's so important to be the bigger person, right? Go over there and say hello, introduce yourself, welcome them, make them feel included, because that's how we just really engage and to create a very healthy environment within our school.
And thank you for sharing that question. It's a really great question that shares insights into what you've seen in your community. And thank you for joining us all the way, I know, in a different time zone also. So we appreciate that. So at this point, what we like to do around 15 minutes before the conclusion is just to go around and see if anybody has anything that they'd like to share. One thing that we love to encourage is I feel statements. So how you're feeling about this talk and this discussion, what you're going to take back, and why that is. So Miriam, if you want to start that and show everybody how it's done and anything you'd like to share, and then we'll go around briefly and see what everybody thinks.
Yes. First off, I really appreciated this conversation. And my I feel statement is I feel empowered to be resilient through any and all challenges that I may encounter in my life.
That's really great. Thank you, Miriam. Bailey, I see you next.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for coming on for the meeting today. I really appreciate you being here. I would say that I feel inspired by today's discussion. I would say I learned a lot and really glad to have been here. And I really liked when Sanan asked what your favorite part of being a school board member is. I thought that was a really good question. And yeah, I felt this was very interesting discussion and inspiring as someone who has gone to Broward County Public Schools for the past I want to say 12, 13 years at this point. So really glad that you were on the call today.
Thank you, Bailey. Isabel?
I also wanted to thank you for speaking. I really enjoyed this topic and conversation. And my I feel statement is I feel motivated to step up more and talk to school board members and maybe mail them my opinion on different issues, and to just, be more out there and be more educated about what's going on.
Thank you, Isabel. And Isabel, we're looking forward to your continued advocacy. That's great. Jacob?
Yeah, thank you for sharing all that today. And I feel like I feel inspired as well as informed because before I wasn't really sure what the school board, much of what they did, but now I feel more informed about that and I feel inspired to start my own advocacy on something that, like for example, for nonprofit stuff like that. So thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. Alexis, I see your hand raised, so you can go next.
I want to say thank you for talking, and I feel encouraged and that I like the knowledge that you gave us because some of the knowledge I did not know what was happening or what it was. And I feel as if I could, now that I know some of the stuff you did, I feel encouraged that I could do more in the community and in my school. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. And thank you for joining us. I know you're a new member, so always welcome to join us for future meetings as well. Grace, would you like to go next?
Yes, I also just want to say thank you so much for speaking. I feel very educated. I feel like you gave a lot of insight on not only what school board members do, but also just different things that you guys are trying to get done. It was very interesting. So thank you.
Thank you, Grace. Mr. Starr?
I want to thank you, Lori, for the time that you set aside to help everybody in your personal life as well as on this call. I also want to say as an expert that works with teenagers and building their confidence, I think it's really critical that we remind them that they're not alone. And oftentimes I think that the reason that they don't say anything or write anything is because they feel like they're the only one feeling that way. And through my experience in dealing with them, I think that's a critical piece of the puzzle. And so I feel to continually be inspired to help those teenagers grow to be the adults that they're meant to be.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. And how about Carice Joseph? All right, no worries. Oh, okay. You can put in the chat, and that would be completely okay. And thank you for joining us. And
She put her I feel statement in the chat.
oh, okay, great. I didn't even realize. Okay, so she says, I feel inspired to make a difference in our community. That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. And last but not least, I don't think I missed anybody. If I did, let me know. Silmi.
Thank you for sharing this inspiring talk. I feel very lucky to be part of this. I feel inspired, and I feel that I hope that I can carry the torch of Alisa's law in my country as well, so that every child feels safe and we can be responsible global citizens.
Oh, that was great. Thank you, Silmi. That was really beautiful. And thank you, everyone who's joined us. And I want to give you one final chance to give any closing remarks that may come to mind, any last pieces of advice and parting words. And we really appreciate you taking time. I know you're really busy and you have a lot of things that you're doing, and to take the time to be here on our program, it really means the world to us. So any closing remarks that you'd like to share?
Yes. So 3 pieces of advice that I would have is know that there is always an alternative solution to your problems. Don't focus on like, this is the only way out. There's another solution. 2 is don't take time for granted, and remember to tell your mom and dad how much you appreciate them and you love them. And 3, keep your life goals and expectations high, and always know that you're supported and you're loved. And thank you so much for having me here today.
That was wonderful. And thank you so much for agreeing to come on and inspiring us. It really means a lot to us, and we really appreciate it. And you answered a lot of the questions, I think all of them from the registration, all of them that everybody has here. So we really appreciate it. And before we go, Miriam, if you can direct us in what we like to do at the end is have a a selfie of sorts on Zoom. So if everybody wants to turn on your camera, if you're able to, I think most of you have, and smile. And Miriam, if you want to direct us in that.
Yes, definitely. So I'll give you guys a second to turn on your camera if you haven't already. Or if you don't want to, that's fine. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna count from 3 and I will take a screenshot. So 3, 2, 1. Okay, I got it. I'm just screenshotting it. Let me just make sure that it captured it. Yes, I got it.
All right, thank you, Miriam. And for everybody on the call, make sure that you follow us on social media so we can continue to grow our community. We'll have that picture and everything else up there so you can retweet or share or anything like that on all of the different social media platforms. We have our website as well. If you'd like to get involved, please contact us. Always looking for more students to get involved. And really appreciate everyone for being here. Our next call is going to be on September 20th with Mayor Gomez of Tamarack. And Ms. Alhadeff, thank you so much. Really, it was truly inspiring, and really appreciate your time and your energy and everything that you're doing for us. So with that, I think that wraps up our session. Oh, sure, Alexis, if you have something to share before we close.
What's your social media and website?
Bailey, do you have that handy with you?
Yes, I dropped in the chat earlier, but I'm gonna do it again real quick just so it's the newest chat.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And on most platforms, it should be at Youth Innovation Table. And on Twitter, it's at YIT Global, if I'm not mistaken. And then the website follows the same pattern. So thank you. Great question. Absolutely. And thank you, everybody, for joining on. Have a great night and see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.